Ladies and gentlemen, Magnus Carlsen is back. I repeat, all of us can celebrate. Magnus has returned. And what I mean by this is he hasn't been playing all that much chess as of late. And the chess world doesn't care about literally anything else. We like two things in the world of chess. We like drama, cheating scandals, and so on. Who said what about who, and when Magnus Carlsen plays. And you may lie to yourself and think that something else is interesting to you, but you're lying to yourself. Now, this is the second event of the Champions Chess Tour 2025, the qualification for the EWC, the Esports World Cup, which will take place late July in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, along with many other esports games. And a lot of the players are qualifying. Now, in today's video, I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of some of Magnus's games. Also, I'm going to show you a tweet that Jan Nepomniachtchi put out after his game, calling his opponent a clown. Never a dull day in the world of chess, as well as a game played by Hikaru Nakamura against Ding Liren, the former world champion. Okay, obviously I'm back home. It was a month abroad. It was fun. But now it's time to get back to business, which is making 3 to 4 Magnus Carlsen videos every single week. Okay. Magnus's first opponent of the day was the Polish player, Jan Krzysztof Duda, who, by the way, during this tournament announced that he would not be trying to qualify for the candidates and that he was burnt out and no longer interested in playing classical chess. Chess world is in chaos, complete chaos. There is no structure, there is no order. There's none of that. Now, d4, played by Magnus. I'm going to show you a lot of Magnus games in this recap. Knight f6. Now, Magnus not playing too much classical chess recently. Mostly playing rapid, mostly playing freestyle. In this tournament, they played 10-minute and 0-second bonus, so let's see how Magnus is going to get it done. Playing an opening that he has played many, many times. He adopted this mostly in 2020, 2021, as he prepared for the World Championship match against Jan Nepomniachtchi. This is the Catalan opening. You have to give up a pawn, and then you get an active bishop. Black has to hang on to that pawn. In this game, Duda, in fact, takes the pawn. That's one of the more principled approaches, but it does give white a lot of development. Now, bishop b4 check is one of the moves. Here, the two most common moves are to block the check with the bishop or block the check with knight bd2. Magnus's move in this position is the third most popular, as you can see from the database. It's the move knight c3. When white plays the move knight c3 in classical chess, chess where you play with 90 minutes, 120 minutes, chess that takes 4, 5, 6 hours, you cannot really get away with playing this move. Because with that much time on the clock, black has preparation, black has memorized variations, and it's something to be said about the state of chess, people memorizing all sorts of stuff. But basically, white actually doesn't prioritize winning the pawn back, whereas in every other thing that I showed you with the bishop and the knight, you do prioritize targeting this pawn. By going knight c3, white is targeting one thing and one thing only. All right? I'm going to skate to one song and one song only. And you just target the center. That is what you are trying to... You leave this pawn here. You are trying to overwhelm your opponent by playing like this. Castles, castles. Now, Magnus is going to try to play e4, and that is the plan. Duda plays knight c6, targeting this pawn with his queen. And Magnus plays a3. And now you have a difficult question. Does black take the knight or not? If black takes the knight, he helps white. As you can see, that's not what was played because the board changed color. This would be very nice for white, because even if black gets a full blockade and completely defends the pawn, white is going to play rook e1, b5, and e4. And here, white is just better. White just has, in my opinion, a slightly better position, complete dominance in the center of the board, and a very, very pleasant game. Now, that's not what happens. Duda goes here. Now e4. Now, as you can see from Duda, he's not burning a lot of clock time. He's just going to go defend this pawn. Now, what if I told you that from this point forward, the game ended in 10 moves? In 10 moves. That's all it took. I'm going to slide this down real quick. As I said that out loud, I realized it was slight spoiler, so I'm gonna block this for the rest of the recap. Got a slightly different computer setup here. Yeah, in 10 moves. White won the game here in 10 moves. This is move 10. Duda resigned on the 20th move of the game. How? How does that even... It's minus 0.3. Yeah, that's why you shouldn't over-rely on the eval bar. Magnus plays h4. This is a very common concept in these positions. It looks completely ridiculous, but this is what Magnus has learned from computers over the last 7 to 8 years, they love flank pawn play. They love stuff like this. These pawns are so useful in the long run for attacking. Now, Duda plays b5. Duda has completed his position. He uses a pawn chain to defend c4. White is never going to win that pawn back. But now Magnus plays e5. This move takes away squares from the opponent, also targets the knight. Also, it opens up the e4 square for this knight, which will be able to move there after this knight relinquishes control. That's what happens. Knight t5, knight. Whoa! Now we see the other idea of the move h4. It's not just about the flank pawn pushing over here and damaging the pawn structure. It's about the anchor on the g5 square. And look at this, e5, knight g5. Now this knight is ready to move. Now the bishop has opened up with pressure on the knights, and the queen is ready with c2 or h5. Duda plays h6, kicking out the knight. Now the knight shows the other purpose. It goes here. If the pawn was back here, the knight would sort of be stranded, but because the pawn is on h4, you actually have long-term attacking ideas behind that pawn. You put the knight behind the h-pawn now. Duda plays knight a5, still trying to create play over here. Clearly not anticipating the attack that's coming. Magnus now threatening bishop h6 and queen h5. And now the only move here by Duda to not lose the game on the spot is queen to e8. And the point of queen e8 is you try to move your f-pawn and trade the queen. Duda misses it. He baits Magnus into sacrificing his bishop to... Oh, look at this, by the way. Knight, pawn, queen, bishop, all in a row. Duda baits Magnus into this position, but this is completely lost. Bishop e4 is a threat. Knight e4, knight g5 is a threat. Knight g5 on its own is a threat. And in the long run, you might even bring a rook. Black has absolutely nothing. There is not a single piece that can defend the black king. Duda goes here and tries to trade the bishop. Bishop b7, knight b7. And now... look at how savage this move is. Knight f4, and black resigns. Knight f4, he just brings his knight into the position. Bishop g5 would have been possible. If the pawn was not on h4, this would have been possible. Bishop g5. Like, just to show you how deep the move h4 is, which he played on the 10th move. Let's just say the game continued exactly as it had. Well, actually, that's not even possible, right? Because there would have been no knight g5. So, I mean, it just goes to show you, like, how useful this move is on so many levels. And on the 20th move, there is a fork that would remove the knight from the board, but Duda resigns. Magnus, and I cannot state this enough, eviscerates the Polish phenom, and they recently played in the World Blitz Championship as well. He swept him there. Now, what could have caused Jan Nepomniachtchi to call his opponent a clown on Twitter? Frankly, not much. I feel like if there was, if the options are call your opponent a clown on Twitter and name a grandmaster, like there's only 3 people, and Jan Nepomniachtchi is going to be in that list. Not a lot of these grandmasters. First of all, not a lot of these top grandmasters. They don't pointedly say things at each other. They're very subliminal. All right. They're all a little bit, you know, especially with all the cheating stuff that's gone on recently last few years. They're too afraid of saying anything that they actually think. Jan Nepomniachtchi is not afraid of saying anything that he actually thinks. He's going to go call somebody a clown. Now, Fedoseev defeated Gukesh, and Jan Nepomniachtchi is one of the final 4. The game is not too important. It was a Petrov defense from Fedoseev, and black in this system is always kind of playing catch-up in development. Nepo was putting pressure early, but Fedoseev did a nice job. He took the d5 square with 5 pieces, pawn, bishop, knight, knight, and queen, repositioned himself very nicely, and got a very nice game. He had a very, very easy game, very chill game. Nepo then maneuvered himself to a pretty nice advantage. He could have played the move queen c2 here, looking to infiltrate, but it wasn't winning by any stretch of the imagination. He went on an attack, but Fedoseev did a nice job, and slowly but surely the game petered out, like most chess games do. Now, look at this, right? They're going to trade the pawns. Just give it a second. They're going to trade some pawns. Okay. Rooks, bishops, 3 pawns each. Okay, there's still a lot to play for, obviously, here. All right, let's keep going. Okay, now it's rook and 2 versus rook and 3 with opposite colored bishops. This is a dead draw. This is a draw. White can't win this position, because even in the end, rook and bishop versus rook is a draw. But even then, that doesn't happen, and we get this position, which is 1 pawn each, completely drawn position, but Nepo has 113 and Fedoseev has 30 seconds. Now they are playing with no bonus time, actually. No bonus time. So they could agree to a draw here, but in this format for the qualification of the Esports World Cup, there is no bonus time. You can actually completely flag your opponent, which actually Hikaru did and many other players have done. all right, in this format. Now, when I saw the tweet by Nepomniachtchi, I assumed he was the one getting flagged. I was assuming Fedoseev beat him on the clock in a totally equal position. However, Fedoseev is down 25 seconds on the clock. However, it is Jan Nepomniachtchi, in fact, who is playing... I don't know if they ever offered each other a draw, but Fedoseev has 12 seconds, 11 seconds, 10 seconds. He's getting flagged. I mean, this is the name of the game. I know some of you might be really disappointed at this, that this is the format, but it is what it is. Now, watch what happens. Again, this is 100 moves now. 28 seconds to 7. All right? 28 seconds to 7. Rook G8. Check. Yes. All good. All good. All good. Right? Checkmate. What? Yeah. He got checkmated. Oh my goodness. What is this? He got mated. And he got checkmated, and then he called his opponent a clown. It's just... I thought he lost on time, but Fedoseev wins the game with 1.2 seconds on the clock. And Jan Nepomniachtchi tweets this. This was so funny. I mean, I love that we have drama all the time in the chess world. He tweets, "I know a clown when I see one. When I saw this, my first instinct was he beat him on the clock." And I was like, oh my gosh, you just can't make this stuff up. Now, Magnus Carlsen, we go back to the GOAT, all right? He's not done, all right? They're still playing, they're still playing in the winner's bracket. His next opponent is Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. Now look at this game. This game was really funny. So in this game, Magnus started with a little bit of a ready. Knight F3, E3, C4. This is the Frenchman, right? A6, all normal, pretty boring stuff. Magnus preparing the pawn push in the center. From the early game, it was just a pretty equal position. Everything was chill. MVL baited Magnus on the queen side, targeted him with the queen side pawn. D5 was a really aggressive move, trying to just crash it straight down the middle. Take, 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 and queen D2, trying to get this. Now, Magnus has won a lot of games in his life from positions like this. Will he win another one? Rook D8, G3. I don't think so. If anybody's calling the shots here, it's the guy playing with the black pieces. The queen, maybe you can call them equal. The black rook is way better than the white rook, which literally hasn't moved, and the black bishop is better than the white bishop, all right? Now Magnus is just worse. MVL here plays H5, which is the best move. You cannot take on H5 because you would be losing the pawn on B2, and this pawn is way bigger of an asset than any other pawn on the board. So Maxim is doing to Magnus what generally Magnus is doing to other people. Rook D1, H4, and opens up Magnus's king. Magnus is getting Magnused. You don't see that very often. He's about to go on Twitter and call his opponent a clown. Rook D4, and now here black should play bishop G5 and take this. And that's exactly what he does. My guy MVL is playing a clinical game. Magnus is up a pawn with completely shattered pawn structure and a butt-naked king. A king wearing no pants, all right? Running around the board. Queen C5 hits the pawn, the other pawn, and the rook while maintaining an attack on the king and an attack on the king. This game is crazy. And not only that, Maxim is also up on time. He's completely outplaying Magnus. Takes on A5. Now the material balance is restored. Magnus plays king F2. Queen back to E5. H4. This is... Yo, this is one of the worst positions I have ever seen Magnus have. Queen H2 now infiltrates. Okay, MVL plays A5. Queen H2 was there. You get around here, you kind of hang around. Not an easy position, though. Rook B8. Queen C2 check. King E2. All right. Queen E6. But suddenly Magnus has consolidated. MVL missed the chance. Maybe there was a moment there. Queen H3. Rook D4. Magnus looking for a draw, by the way. He's not looking to win this game. Now he's still looking for a draw. Trying to trade the pieces. Just trying to get a rook and 2, rook and 1 endgame. Check. Oh my goodness. The king is completely stuck on the back rank. The black king runs out. If you keep hunting the king is going to come in here. That's why Magnus backs up, and now MVL's winning again. MVL is winning again. He is now completely winning. The winning idea here is queen c5 check and queen a3. It's there. And MVL finds queen c5 check, and Magnus goes here. Now queen c3 is GG. Queen takes h5, taking a pawn with a check, is also GG. But queen c3 is completely game over because you threaten queen a1. You threaten queen b3, you keep an eye on d2, you threaten rook f1, everything is over after this. The hard part about playing this move is that you open up your own king. And after rook d6, you have to find king g5, and you have to be 1,000,000% sure that you are not losing here after f5. And you're not losing. You're actually just winning. But MVL takes this pawn and does it like this, and is still totally winning. Oh, Magnus maybe back in the game, and the worst part about this is that in this position, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, after beating Magnus for 54 moves, hung his rook to a fork and resigned. The game, after queen g1, king c2, a little bit more maneuvering, and white won because he's simply going to win this. Yo, 54 moves, this man was outplaying Magnus Carlsen. He was -7 in this position. He could have played queen c3, and the game was over, and Magnus pulls off the win. It is the Magnus effect, boys and girls. This is how it feels to be playing these guys. You got to beat these guys again and again in the same game, because guess what? If you don't beat them again and again and again in the same game, you let them get back into the game. Yeah. Once you lose a game like that, it tilts you for the rest of the match, all right? Then Magnus plays the Berlin, which is not an opening that he plays all that often. Magnus is not a Berlin type of guy. Berlin is one of the most drawish and solid systems in all of chess. It's the Berlin endgame. Now, Maxime has made a career of studying the Berlin with white and actually winning a lot of nice games in the Berlin endgame. If you don't know what the Berlin endgame is, don't worry about it, all right? Don't worry about it, okay? You're fine. H3, H6, bishop d7, Magnus playing a5, and then in a lot of these structures, black plays b6 and maneuvers the king over here, puts the bishop on c6, puts the bishop on e7 or on e6, all right, and then decides what to do with the pawns. A4, king c8. Magnus not a big Berlin endgame guy, all right? He doesn't generally go for these positions, which is why early in the game, again, it was Maxime, man. Maxime was putting the pressure. He had a really nice position. He was playing quickly. He played like 15 moves in 1 minute. Magnus trying to trade the knight. Rook e1, just great positional improvement from MVL. Now he starts targeting Magnus's pawns, baiting Magnus to push his pawns forward. Knight h2 is crazy. Knight d2 was actually a little bit better, repositioning that way and putting the knights on f4 and e4. But he goes to h2. And oh my time of the year, I just cannot sit here and record a video normally. My nose is so itchy all the damn time. I got Allegra, I got Zizal, I got Zyrtec. None of it works. I'm going crazy. All right? I'm not snorting anything. Just losing my mind. Anyway, knight f5, knight f1, Magnus grabbing a pawn. Why? Because he's like, well, if I'm going to suffer with this passive position, I might as well just grab a pawn on the way out. King goes to b7. Still, white is doing very, very well. And Maxime is so close. But instead of e6, it was maybe better to go knight e3 and rook d7 and only then push the pawns. But he does it like this. Magnus plays rook h6 because he doesn't want to sacrifice the rook. He hasn't watched enough Gotham content. e7. And for another game in a row, it is a position where Magnus is under pressure. Maxime, rook is targeted, rook c1. The best move here was giving up the rook and getting a total positional lockdown. If bishop d1, rook d1, you got rook d7 incoming, and you can't even stop it, which is really, really nasty. You got to kick out the bishop like this, and then white is going to reposition the knight to d5 or f5 and have a very, very pleasant game. Really nasty idea, but he plays a little bit too passively, and before you know it, all of Magnus's pieces are active, and the guy has won literally every piece in white's position and has 3 connected pass pawns with a bishop. And you cannot stop this. A rook cannot stop this. There are not enough pawns. Within a few moves, the pawns are simply moving. Gets down to a2. White's rook now has to permanently stay on the a file, and this is losing because the king will come here or there. So watch how Magnus converts it. H4, king d4, g3, and that's GG. Why is that GG? If the rook stays on this file, H3. Pawns are getting through. Maxime has played 2 really close games, but he just simply wasn't able to put it away when it mattered. And watch this. This is Maxime now playing the Dutch defense because he has to win. He's down 2-0 in the match. First one to get 2.5 wins. Magnus plays the London against the Dutch defense, probably trying to bait Black into playing something very provocative, knowing that he has to win the game. E3, C4, playing super principled. And now this next move, this is just like, if you don't know chess, the next move will absolutely shock you. The next move doesn't make any sense. You know, you think bishop here, castle. The next move for white is c5. That is just not a move we are used to seeing. But grandmasters against the Dutch know this is the best move because you'll get the bishop here. And if this trade happens and this trade happens, Black's queenside is super underprepared. It's under fire. Knight b5 is ready, and it's a very unpleasant position to defend. You know that your opponent wants to keep the queens on the board, so you threaten this move, and then you play the bishop to c4. Black's king is already running to the other side of the board, and then white can play pawn takes, and just has a slight advantage. But how will Magnus actually capitalize here? Black has some weaknesses. White has maybe the c file to work on, but is it really so clear? Bishop back to h2. Queen goes to e8. All right, we defend the center. Knight t5 threatens a fork. Fair enough. Queen goes back. Now Magnus is not going to repeat the position. He keeps improving. Bishop d7. He keeps improving. Now b5 is there. Maxime plays knight here. He's trying to trade off the knight. Max plays knight h4. Now he's trying to target that weak pawn. Trying to take the knight, take the pawn. So black goes king h7. Now, I just want to show you the incredible board awareness of the best player in the world. A lot of people would spot this. What does this pawn, and this rook have in common? If you take this pawn and the queen takes, anywhere you move this bishop is a discovered attack on the queen. But when you actually look at it, there's nothing useful. Any bishop move is just peekaboo. But by going here, the only way black can defend that pawn successfully is with the king. Because if you defend it with the bishop, I go here, and then I come to that square. So king h7, now bishop g8 is possible. And it's check. So knight takes c7. That is so ridiculous. That is such high-class board awareness. You cannot take the knight because now bishop g8 is check. So Magnus jumps in, picks up a pawn, and is just now completely winning. Much, much better. Borderline completely winning position. d5. Queen goes all the way to c7. He trades off the queen. He has the 2 bishops. He has the extra pawn. He's about to have the rook infiltrating on the c-file. The bishops take away all the squares from the opponent. Look at this position. If rook goes to a6, white plays a4. The bishops take away every square and defend the pawn to keep the rook enclosed. Nasty. Just absolutely nasty position. And he suffocates MVL's pieces. Bishop e8, hits the rook, hits the pawn. He's going to win 4 pawns at the end of this whole thing. Probably 3. And Maxime resigns. And Magnus sweeps MVL and makes it to the semifinals. Now, I told you I would also give you a game for dessert, and then I will tell you the standings. Hikaru versus Ding Liren, former world champ, posting a lot about his life on, I forgot that there's a lot of different Chinese social media platforms he's posting on. He recently went to Hong Kong. He played some chess. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He's very funny, Ding, actually. He's very funny. Like, he posts very self-deprecating and self-aware things. And Hikaru he just got a very nice position from the opening. He played the system with c6 against the English, bishop c5. You know, he put his pieces in the middle, and then he had this nice pawn breakthrough, pawn to d3, e3, and just had to, push the white pieces backwards, knight back to e7, damage pawn structure for white. And very nice coordination here led him to having sustained pressure. But I think he could have capitalized slightly better. Let me just back up for a moment. There was a moment here. Yeah, it was right here. He had this really mysterious move, bishop d7. I remember watching this game live. So bishop d7 hits the queen and hits the knight, and somehow white is like really struggling to keep it. Like the only move here for white is king h1. I remember looking at this being like, what? So if white plays something like h3, knight d4 is demolition. Everything falls apart in the white position. So you say, okay, well, I just move the white queen, but where? Where do you move the white queen, right? Bishop d7 was a very nasty move. He had good piece coordination, but Ding was better. Ding took back the advantage a little bit later in the game. And then here there was a moment. Queen a6 won in one move. Piece is pinned. Queen a6. Crazy. Winning in one move. Kind of funny. But bishop d6. King g2. And Ding is now winning with a minute on the clock, but he only has 1 minute. And I think here, bishop c4 was also winning for white, which is kind of hilarious. I'm not even sure why exactly. Probably some bishop f7 or queen e8 or something like that. This was a wild game. And then here, black was winning if he played rook d1, pinning the bishop to the queen. It was a very tense game with where the eval bar was having a heart attack. But ultimately, it settled into a position where it should probably be a draw, but because of the low time and the format, Hikaru's going to get the job done. And he did. He took down Levon Aronian. He took down Ding Liren in the same day. And this is a winning endgame. Ding ended up losing on time. But yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles. I mean, that's life. I'm gonna show you the standings. And actually, at the time of recording the video, I will be doing some commentary as well. Really tough day for Gukesh. These are the standings for the people that qualify for the World Cup. 12 players, all right? And there's going to be a last chance qualifier as well, which happens in Riyadh itself. But these players will qualify. It's Magnus, Hikaru, Nepo, Duda, Firouzja, Erigaisi. That's a stacked field. Duda, obviously a tough showing today, but these are all the players that are likely to qualify. But then there's going to be also last chance qualifiers. That will be later. And that's, yeah, so that's how the whole thing works. You know? There's also like a play-in qualifier that happened that Fedosseev won. And this will happen in late July. So, the motto for today, folks, don't be a clown, all right? Magnus is back. He's going to play this event, then he's going to play Norway Chess. That's going to be a stacked tournament with Hikaru, with Gukesh, and other players as well, who, you know, we all love and really enjoy watching. And that's all I have for you for now, all right? Get out of here.